Before I start, I just want to make sure that everybody in the UK is all right. We've had this storm. I can't remember what it's called now. Some stupid name like Bibet or something. I don't know whether that's a Greek god or I don't know, a Russian Cossack or something that it's been named out of. Anyway, Storm Babette, apparently, if that's right, I mean, as I say, may be completely wrong there, but it's been sweeping across Scotland and the Midlands, causing floods. And I understand that there's been a death, which is tragic, of course. But don't panic, because the government, they did a test, didn't they, in March? They did a test in which they were, going to send a signal to every phone in the country to warn you if there was, I don't know, an earthquake or the sky was falling in, or of course there was flooding. Now, I didn't get that, but then I'm down on the south coast, so maybe I wouldn't. Perhaps those people up north did get this warning from the government, because they did spend a lot of time and effort, and probably a lot of taxpayers' money, on making sure that we got the message and making sure that our phones would receive the emergency message. Only that may or may not have happened, I don't know. Anyway, I just want to make sure that everybody was all right. We saw, of course, and I've been talking about this recently, Andrew Bridgen in the House of Commons giving that wonderful speech with all those facts and figures. And we did actually see about 15 people possibly in the House of Commons. So some of the MPs did bother to turn up, whereas most of them stayed away. And I made a very harsh statement saying that this is the line in the sand in yesterday's video, in which I said, if they don't turn up, if they don't listen, if they don't listen to the facts and take notice, then every death from there on in, because he was talking about the excess deaths, and he was showing the evidence that most likely linked it to that medical intervention that had been rolled out in January in 2021, from January, February time that year. That I thought that if they didn't talk about it, if they didn't mention it, if they didn't take it seriously, then that was basically now tantamount to murder. If they don't stop and say, well, let's look at the evidence at the very least, this then, and if there's one more excess death, if there's one more, and it's proved that it's linked to having that medical intervention, well, to me, that is now absolutely tantamount to murder. There's no question really about that, because if you provide evidence, if you say, look, there's a question here, this thing that you've rolled out, there is an unusual situation, people are dying left, right and centre, and the only thing that's really changed is not only in this country but across the world. And if you present that evidence, as Andrew Bridgen did, and you just ignore it and say, no, it's just a bit of dementia, isn't it? It's just, there's been a bit of flu, it's all right, it's nothing to see here. As the Leader of the House did say at the end of Andrew's speech, after she looked up and saw the amazing cheer, the wonderful cheer from the public gallery that went at the meeting. I thought it was supposed to be soundproofed, so they must have had a very good cheer. Anyway, they looked slightly perturbed, didn't they, those MPs, and particularly the Leader of the House looked slightly worried as she then tried to bat off, the truth with her nonsense. Of course, they have to do that because they're so isolated. And the thing is, they know what they've done. They're running scared, all of them now. They're trying to put their heads in the sand, those that didn't turn up, and those that did turn up are beginning to realise, oh crikey, what have we done? What are we embroiled with? At least they ought to be thinking that. Now, there's a lady in New Zealand who has started up a party, I think it's called New Zealand Loyal. And she's now, I think, managed to get herself, after 6 weeks of campaigning, into government, as far as I'm aware. And she's been worried about these drugs that have been pumped into people. She calls it murder by needle, which I think is a very interesting and accurate term, really. If, again, the information is given to these people to say, actually, this is not as useful as it is and people are dying as a result of it, and you keep it going, then, and if you're not prepared to talk about it, that is murder, isn't it? It is. You're just allowing something to continue. To me, that is basically tantamount to murder. Well, Liz Gunn apparently has had a whistleblower give some very interesting information that not only proves that there have been deaths linked to the medical intervention, which I believe they were mandating left, right and centre. My daughter was subject to it. She, in order to keep her job and in order to keep the lifestyle that she has managed to set up for her in New Zealand, and she couldn't even get out of the country because you needed one of these wretched drug things to get on an aeroplane, she had to take it. Now, I'm hoping that she will live to her old age. I'm hoping that she won't suffer some, you know, what's it called, myocarditis, that stuff, you know, the big blood clots and things. I'm hoping she won't be harmed by this. I'm hoping that she'll be all right. And this is a father thinking about her daughter, of course. But the whistleblower that gave this information definitely said, you know, there is absolutely a link between these things that were given to people and the sudden deaths. And we know that's true from Andrew Bridgen, who's been doing such sterling work. Well, this lady, Liz Gunn, is asking for a criminal investigation. And I think that is sensible, rather than just maybe, as Andrew's doing, is a debate, but actually a criminal investigation, because that means on the evidence that you've got, you can do something about it. For example, if you're having a criminal investigation, the jabs would just have to stop, wouldn't they? And all the evidence gathered and seized. That would mean computers, files, everything would be seized, so it would undergo a thorough investigation. Now, whether that would be carried out properly and with due diligence by honest people, I don't know. But if you have the public on your side saying, hang on a minute, we want to scrutinise this as well, then perhaps there is a chance. But Liz Gunn said that the authorities, the people that called for it, the government in other words, they knew in advance what the damages were from this intervention. They knew. Well, we kind of did know this. Didn't Klaus Schwab, that pretend Bond villain with no cap, dressed up in his silly leather jerkin, didn't he write a book called The Great Reset? And didn't it say inside there, as people have photocopied parts of it and sent it to me, that he wants to, as in his words, euthanize the population of the world, that they would eradicate the West and keep something like 500 million of the Chinese, because they are so used to being under a communist government that they would obey instructions. Didn't he say that? I believe he did say that. But we know that even them at the WEF and the WHO, who want to sort of steal our sovereignty and mandate another pandemic and make sure that we take an intervention, maybe that's what these people who come to our country in their lovely little rubber boats and are being put up into hotels, maybe they are there going to be armed with these syringes and ready to hold us down and actually do it. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe these mysterious crates are there for a reason that one whistleblower supposedly said was full of ammunition, although of course no evidence of it, no photographs, which is what I would certainly have done if I'd discovered there was a crate of ammunition being put around. You'd take photographs and make sure that the police and the government and all public bodies knew about it and got it out there. So I think that's probably a load of old nonsense just to get us a little bit worried and tetchy. But a criminal investigation would probably be good. A 3-hour debate, as Andrew is calling for, is also good. But really, we need to get the public aware of this danger. It is a leap of faith, of course, for the public to actually believe that the governments, these kind-hearted, nice, benevolent, philanthropic governments that we have voted in, we didn't elect, we voted as slaves because we registered our name and we acquiesced to everything, that these people, the leap of faith, that these people would actually do as we say. Even though, of course, it seems that they want to be taxing us left, right and centre, putting in more surveillance, setting up 5G left, right and centre so that they can turn on whatever it is that's in these medical interventions to activate us and cause us harm, no doubt. Even though they do all these things, force, as we've seen, digital IDs upon us, and soon a new banking system, a central bank digital currency, they don't really seem to be on our side. And I don't know why people keep thinking that they are, and that voting in another bunch is going to make the blind bit of difference. In my mind, that whole system is over, that we need a completely different type, an actual assembly of people who will look after us, rather than a corporation that's there for money, for profit, that's on Dun and Bradstreet, there to extract as much financial gain out of us as is possible. But people do still seem to think that the government is freely voted for. They still think that democracy is a great idea. And it is a shame to see that. But anyway, the main point that I'm trying to get to is, of course, that there are people like Andrew Bridge and like Liz Gunn who are out there desperately trying to get the public to understand, as well as the politicians, that these needles full of whatever it is that being pumped into people has now got to stop. And whatever has happened as a result of that, the people responsible, the people that knew, the people that took part in it, those that didn't use critical thinking, those that had a Hippocratic oath, need to now be accountable for their actions. You can't put your head in the sand anymore. I'm really sorry. That's not the case, because those people who've been harmed and those relatives of those who've died are not going to put up for this any longer, and that the tide is turning. I believe we do actually have them running scared, as the evidence is snowballing now out of every orifice, wherever it happens to be, and that these people will be accountable. And I'm sorry that if you do now carry on pushing these drugs when you will not talk about it, when it's made so public, then, as I've said before, this is a criminal offence, and you do need to be tried and punished accordingly.